There are so many ways to make action moments impactful, but really, when you boil things down, there's only one technique that matters. Now, when I say perspective, what do I mean? Well, in some cases, it is quite literally their point of view, but typically a scene having the perspective of a character means that the camera communicates what the character is thinking and feeling. Just look at this beautiful shot from the opening act of Mission Impossible Fallout, where Ethan Hunt makes the difficult decision to risk his mission of protecting the plutonium to save his friend Luthen. The camera starts on the plutonium, tilts diagonally to the car with an open door, tilts again to the open road ahead, and then dollies backwards, racking focus to Ethan as he rejects this clear path to victory. Great action scenes put us in the perspective of our hero, but they can also put us in the perspective of our villain planning their next move, or even the perspective of a bystander watching from afar. And the moments that matter most in a scene with multiple points of view are the beats where we switch perspectives. One masterclass of suspense is the climax to the Coen brothers' debut film, Blood Simple. In this tense standoff where Frances McDormand's Abby must survive the hitman she thinks is her husband, the Coens employ a very simple rule. We are always in the perspective of the character who reacts. This is an incredibly slow, deliberate scene where one wrong move means death, so whenever a character plans their escape or is scouting out their target, we stay with them as they wait for their opponent. This means that whenever a character attacks, the audience is caught off guard as we experience these bursts of violence through the person they're directed at. This technique of switching perspectives would become perfected in the Coen brothers' masterpiece No Country for Old Men, which would then go on to heavily inspire Denis Villeneuve's cartel thriller Sicario. Sicario not only puts us in the characters' heads during its many tense standoffs, but it also changes perspective altogether as Benicio del Toro's Alejandro hijacks the film from our protagonist, Kate.
Catch your breath. Get back up there.
Ultimately, it's Deacon's camera and who it focuses on that gives this movie its power. It's the decision to linger on the bystanders after a brutal shootout, or the decision to hold on a father's face just as he witnessed his worst nightmare. The perspective of Denis Villeneuve's films are crucial to their success, and nowhere is that more evident than in 2024's Best Film. From its opening standoff, Dune Part 2 employs the same react philosophy that made the climax to Blood Simple so effective. We follow whichever character is being ambushed. The Harkonnen bodies falling from the sky not only startle Paul, but they also give away his location to a nearby soldier, forcing him to act. Each escalation of this encounter comes as a surprise to the audience, really cementing the danger and cruelty of the world Paul has just entered. Next up is the Fremen Spice Raid, which is the closest Dune Part 2 gets to a conventional blockbuster set piece. Perspective is the key to this shootout, as both Chani and the Ornithopter gunner maneuver around the spice harvester to line up the perfect shot. As Paul distracts the Ornithopter gunner to give Chani her opening, the scene employs the exact same technique Spielberg used in the iconic sniper sequence in Saving Private Ryan, showing us the scope view of the enemy combatant right as our hero delivers the killing blow. Each of these shifts in perspective are incredibly deliberate, not just for their effectiveness, but also their narrative implications. It would have been so easy, for instance, to intercut Paul's legendary first Sandworm ride with Chani and Stilgar's nervous reactions throughout, but instead, Villeneuve stays with Paul the entire time as he endures the relentless sand and disorientation. It's only once Paul has conquered this behemoth that we finally shift back to Chani to witness the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib spread around her. As the Lisan al-Gaib persona grows, Paul's perspective in the action decreases. During the Spice Depot attack, we stay with Rabban Harkonnen and his unit as they're lured into Paul's trap. Once again, Dune 2 echoes Saving Private Ryan, especially the fear before the storming of Omaha Beach, but where that sequence explodes into chaos. Here, the camera strays steadily with the Harkonnens while Fremen assassins splinter the dust and dwindle their numbers. This fear relentlessly builds until Muad'Dib's silhouette appears alongside the growing army around him, triggering a desperate Harkonnen escape. Going through Dune 2, it's shocking how little Paul Atreides is actually in these action scenes. He's indistinguishable from his followers until he lowers his guard to welcome an old friend. The film shows less and less of him until he makes the crucial decision of drinking the warm piss, completely submitting himself to prophecy. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole lore of Dune, but at this point, Paul has effectively become omnipotent. Like Dr. Manhattan, he's a puppet who can see the strings. To convey this, both Dune films use extensive callbacks and dream sequences to create a constant sense of déjà vu, as though all of these actions were predetermined. Dune 2 then consistently frames Paul towering from afar, an immovable object that an entire world contorts around. The added tension between Paul and Chani is so crucial, as we are now seeing Paul's story through someone else's eyes. By the time we get to the massive third act battle, Paul's perspective has entirely disappeared. As Muad'Dib conquers the battlefield, the camera holds on the Emperor and the Harkonnens hiding in their shaking fortress, grasping for any power they have left. When Paul finally breaks through, we see him through his enemy's eyes as a masked messiah. While Muad'Dib zeroes in on his target, we stay with Baron Harkonnen and look up at a figure we no longer recognize. For the final duel, the film finally gives perspective back to Paul, which he shares with his opponent Feyd-Rautha and Chani watching from the side. Even though Paul already knows the outcome of this fight, that doesn't mean it isn't gonna hurt. While we see many quick reactions and perspectives, most notably this look between Paul and Chani, ultimately, this final strike is told through Feyd-Rautha's eyes, as both he and the audience are played by Paul's surprise attack to the heart. It catches all of us off guard, even though we all saw it happen 33 minutes earlier.
Listen, Gabe!
Dune Part 2 isn't just playing with perspective to make these moments more impactful, it's systematically deconstructing the tropes and visual language that we associate with blockbuster filmmaking. It's both a fantastic adaptation of a 60-year-old genre-defining classic, while also being a dark mirror to the power fantasies that define so much of the media that Dune inspired. So the next time you're watching another bloated battle scene and wondering, why am I so bored? Just ask yourself, whose perspective should I be in?